What is going on, YouTube people? Neo Cards and Comics here for the Sunday morning weekly news catch up, market wrap up, the whole 9 yards. We're just going to hop right into it. A little news heavier this week with a primary topic to discuss. Panini Crown Royal Basketball Kabooms. The sticker on the front tells you where they're at. So, this off the heels of the backyard break situation with the whole loaded boxes and Sports Card Radio did a deep dive on that, and credit to them, they did the work on this along with LMS breaks on the Crown Royale specifically. The loaded boxes thing with backyard breaks, my general take was, for anyone that doesn't remember, and I talked about it in a Sunday video a few weeks ago when that was all going on, I never actually did a dedicated video on it, was basically like, yeah, like I get the math to a degree. I'm not going to sit here and analyze it. That's not really my thing. I'm not a math guy. The numbers look bad, but I need to see some actual proof. Can I see some actual physical evidence? Fast forward a couple weeks, tinfoil hat brigade was correct, and now we at least have the proof on Crown Royale. Now, why do I say that that's proof for everything else? To me, this is now Pandora's box being opened. Clearly, if there was a way to track case hits in this product, there's probably a way to do it in others. It's just a matter of cracking the code, if you will. To be honest, in hindsight, this really shouldn't be that surprising when you think about it. And I'm not the first person to speculate on this or pontificate, whatever you want to call it. They need a way to track it to some degree to make sure that the cases get their case hit box. You know what I mean? Like there's 12 boxes in a case or whatever there is. There's supposed to be case hits in there. Someone somewhere needs to know where the case hit is, so one could be inserted into the box. Otherwise, you get one box with no case hits, or one box with 10 case hits instead of one. Who knows? Clearly, this information got out, or someone just cracked the code. People rip enough of this stuff. Breakers rip a ton of this stuff. And maybe someone just cracked it on their own. Maybe they had an inside tip. Who knows? So, do I think that backyard breaks, air quotes, get loaded cases? I'm still a little skeptical on that. Does backyard breaks know which box has a hit, air quotes, or any breaker for that matter, any of the bigger breakers? Maybe. That I could see. Having now had this come out with this new information, they may know that a box is hot, to use kind of a better term there, but they might not actually know what it is. Like they pulled the Cade 101 or something like that. They might not know that it's the 1 of 1 Cade, but they may know this is a hot box. There's going to be something good in here. This is our case hit box. And then it then comes down to whatever the case hit might be. So once again, it's not surprising that some sort of code or whatever exists to kind of sort this stuff out from a sorting perspective internally. It's a bad, terrible look that it got out into the wild. However it did. Or if the code wasn't good enough and someone cracked it. Like I said, that very well could be the case as well. How do you fix it? I don't really know. Outside of like formal regulation coming in or whatever, and I don't really think anyone actually wants that. A lot of people say that they do, but that brings a whole other host of headaches along with it, and honestly would probably never happen, at least not to this degree. I could see regulation around breaking, like from the aspect of the gambling nature of it, like, hey, you have to be 18 to buy into a break. Or something along those lines. I could see something like that eventually coming. One day, it might be tricky to figure out, but something along those lines I could see. I don't think the government wants to come in here and, oversee Panini or Topps in regards to how they're printing their product, putting it in a box, getting those boxes out to the distributor, so on and so forth. But overall, really, really bad look. Once again, shout out to SCR and LMS. LMS was the ones that kind of came forward with it. And it appears like this information's been around for a hot minute. So, obviously breakers know about this. It kind of throws the whole breaker thing into an ugly light for sure. I've never been a big breaker I've never bought into a break in my life. My general advice is don't buy in the breaks if you actually are in this to attempt to make some sort of money or break even or whatever. Breaking 9 times out of 10 you're just going to eat a loss and not even probably get cards that you want. So just take that money and go buy the cards that you actually want to own. So if a bunch of breakers knew about this, air quotes code, or, how to identify a hot box across various products. And right now, once again, all we know for sure is Crown Royal Basketball and Kaboom specifically. But once again, where there's smoke, there's fire. So if you could do it on this one, you could probably do it on other products as well to some degree. Once again, you're not going to know what's in it per se, but you might have an idea that it's a hot box at minimum. So if breakers knew that, and now they're setting hot boxes aside for certain customers or certain breaks, and moving non-hot boxes into other breaks like that, that's where things get all sorts of ugly. If once again, I don't see the need to buy into a break. I get some people really like it. It's just not for me. And I don't have a lot of firsthand experience with it. So that's my general overall take on this. Terrible look. We'll see what happens from here. I don't know that anything changes per se. I don't think we get a formal Panini statement. Maybe we do. I don't know. And maybe I don't know that this would affect the sale to Fanatics. If it happens, that's supposed to have been happening 5 different times. People were speculating maybe the redemption case that keeps kind of floating around out there and getting delayed and pushed back, and new motions could potentially be holding the sale up of Panini to Fanatics, and that makes some sense there. They might want clarity on what the ruling's going to be on that before they take ownership of the company. But that rumor, that goes around every day. Oh, tomorrow's going to be the day Fanatics is getting bought. Nope. Tomorrow's going to be the day. Nope, the next day. Nope, the next day. And we still sit, months later, and it still hasn't happened yet. I still think it happens, but who the hell knows when. Everyone's just kind of guessing on it. So that's that mess. The other big mess of the week was the whole, and I did 17 videos on it, so I'm not even going to pull it up to talk about it. The whole PSA, group submitter fiasco with PSA UK and Ludkins. It does appear, actually, I got this information after I recorded the video, that Ludkins USA is not, they are separate companies, but it sounds like they were having issues too. It almost kind of sounds like a Card Collector 2 situation where Ludkins US was using Ludkins UK account, and because that account went kind of sideways, they got wrapped up into this, even though I don't know. There's a lot of missing details on that one, but the long story short is a bunch of people that have cards through Ludkins USA messaged me or left comments on that video saying, hey, we got some emails. Our stuff is wrapped up in this too. So basically anything Ludkins sounds like it's in a little bit of a weird position. UK much worse off. And long story short, it sounds like everyone's going to get their cards back, but it's going to take some time. We saw that with the Marks Cards situation. There are still people waiting to get cards back from the whole Marks Cards fallout. So at least everyone's going to get their cards back, but you could be waiting a while, potentially. And I know some of these people have been waiting for 2 or 3 years already since these cards were initially sent out. So if you need more details on that, I did 2 or 3 different videos on it because the information kind of kept changing from the initial different people releasing updates on both sides of that whole debacle. And that really calls into question, once again, we talked about it in those videos, group submissions as a whole. Like, there's a lot of really good group submitters out there that don't do shady things, have been in business forever, do everything right and on point, and they get a little dirt on them every time something like this happens. Even if they're completely innocent, a few extra people are going to throw a little side eye over there. And if a buddy asks, hey, should I use a group submitter? More people will be like, nah, they're pretty shady, even if the group submitter that you're using is perfectly fine. It just definitely brings that more into question. Hopefully this is the last that we hear about something like this. I doubt that it will be. So, moving along. In actual sports card, actual card news, we have the Luka Logoman back up for auction. It's at 1.8 million on the PWCC Premier. This card sold peak pandemic for 4.6 million. We will see where this ends up. It's got, I think, about 10 days to go, 12 days to go. 1 week. 1 week, 5 days. So yeah, 12 days to go until this ends from time of recording. We'll see how close it gets. This card went peak pandemic pricing. Does something like this actually maintain its value? Ask me again in a week and 5 days. We'll find out 2 weeks from now during the weekly market update for that. Though I'm sure there'll be plenty of content around this card once it actually sells, especially if it goes for way under. And they take like a 50% loss on it. Now, why are things coming like this to market? Why would you sell this card now if you had it? There's been a bunch of different speculation on it, from people taking advantage of, maybe wanting the loss for tax purposes, maybe just wanting to cash out to have the money for other things. There could be a host of different reasons. Who knows? But we'll see where this ends up getting to. The Luka 101 Logoman. Cool looking card. I definitely wouldn't pay 4.6 million for it. That's for sure. Best part about this, not even game used. The enclosed player award. RIP. Good old Panini. Moving right along, let's talk card shows. A lot of shows this weekend. I had 2 local shows this weekend. I had my Hartville show, and then there's a show in Cleveland on Sunday. I don't think I'm going to actually be able to get up to that. On larger regional shows, this was the Shipshewana show weekend. I was unable to make that one due to work on Friday. I just could not get out the door soon enough to make it out there. And then this was the weekend of the Dallas Card Show. So I reached out through my network of dealers, if you will, as shady as that sounds out of context. But I know a couple dealers that set up at Dallas. I know a bunch of people that went to the Shipshewana show. So I was in DMs, sliding into DMs on Saturday, and some of these people actively DM me to keep me in the loop. And I even talked to Brad, the show promoter from Ships. So let's start with Dallas first. Friday, I got a message from one of the dealers that I trust down there that has given me information for a while on the Dallas Card Show and always been on point. And then I heard this from some other people as well that were on site. So it's not a single source, if you will. He basically said it was the worst Friday Dallas show ever. In terms of a foot traffic perspective and just things getting done, it was basically dead. Saturday, it does sound like it was in better shape. Things had picked up a little bit. It was 750 tables this time around, which is huge. Football was still the king of what was moving, with basketball getting a little bit of buzz. We're going to rinse and repeat this statement that we've been saying for months. The people that were priced correctly were selling. He said the people in the room were buying, wanted to do trade plus cash on a lot of deals, but people were buying if you were priced correctly. And that means being at today's comps, not February 2021 comps. Talked to multiple dealers from the Shipshewana show and Brad, the guy that runs it. Trade night was a little light on Friday night. A lot of people thought, and well, Brad got direct information from people that usually attend, that high school football playoffs kind of put a little bit of a crimp in that. Saturday, the show was less busy than previous ones, but go back to what we said 45 seconds ago. People were buying. The people that were there, that were in the room, were buying if you were priced correctly. Still pretty heavy show traffic from what I was told and from photos that I saw and some videos and stuff on IG, but just not as busy as it usually was, which quite frankly, that actually might be, I don't want to, no offense, Brad, it might be actually like a slightly good thing. It almost gets too crowded in there sometimes where it gets tough to get around the tables. So that thinning out even by, 20%, if the people that are in the room are buying, it might actually make it a little bit more of an enjoyable show, just because sometimes it gets super packed in there and it's hard to even get up to tables during the peak busyness of that show. The other dealer that I talked to basically said anything under $1,000, that magical like $200 to $1,000 price point, or even really $200 to $500 price point, is really the sweet spot right now. That $200 to $500 mark, if you're in that range for most of your inventory, and you're priced correctly, you will absolutely move stuff. And once again, I had multiple dealers tell me that the people that were in the room were willing to buy or trade plus cash. A lot of people still want to do trade plus cash to move up in the better cards, but you had to be at today pricing. That's the biggest problem. At my local show, it was slower. It felt slower to me. I was only there. I didn't have a ton of time. I was only there for about 40 minutes first thing in the morning, but it seemed like it was starting kind of slow. This time of year, that show is a little bit smaller, so there's less foot traffic because they lose an outside portion in a tent because it's Ohio, and that doesn't really work in November, December, and January and through the winter. I thought it was a little bit slower. It was interesting walking the show floor and just listening to conversations between dealers and buyers and sellers. Just a lot of negativity about the current state of the market. I heard one dealer complaining about having to sell 3 cards at X price and how frequently comps are changing all the time and how everything's in the tank, and another guy being like, I'm putting it out. That's my price. If someone wants to buy it, great. If not, they could keep moving. You know, some of that nonsense talk that you hear that is just extremely frustrating. It's like there's cases where I could literally buy the card on eBay for cheaper. And this isn't just this show specifically, but just shows in general. How many times I've been at a show and be like, listen, like literally the card's right here on eBay. I could click buy it now and it's going to be cheaper with shipping and tax than what you're trying to get for it. Can we get close? If it's a card that I actually want and I just don't want to deal with the eBay aspect of it. And when they just flat out refuse, it's like, okay, whatever. You know what I mean? So definitely still a lot of show frustrations right now, I think, with buyers and sellers. Sellers aren't keen on current market prices, and buyers aren't going to buy at prices that are non-realistic. So there's definitely some push-pull still going on. I think we still need to flush out that inventory that people bought at the highs during 2020, 2021, early 22 even. That stuff needs to change hand multiple times so people get away from the, well, I'm into it for. Stop thinking like that. It's the worst thought process you could have. Well, I'm into it for. Who cares? It's probably not going to go back to that number. Are you better off? The thing you always have to consider, if you're underwater on a card, what is your best option to make your money back on that card? Is it for it to sit, that card to sit in your case and collect dust? That $1,000 card that's now $400? Is it ever going to go back to $1,000 again? No. So you could probably sit on it. It's not going to do anything. Maybe it goes back up to 500. Who knows? And who knows when that's actually going to happen? Or more likely than not, it's going to keep going down. Sell it for 400. Get the $400. Use that 400 to go buy something that has better upside. Then if what you spent that 400 on goes to 800, now you only took a $200 loss on that entire transaction if you follow the chain. People just have a really hard time breaking through on that. The card's not going back to what it was in 2021. You need to get through that mindset, everybody. And not everybody, because most people that watch this know, I've talked about this plenty of times before. So that's the current card show vibe / temperature. If anyone was at Dallas, Ships, whatever, a local show, give me a vibe check in the comments down below. It's always very, very helpful. How was attendance? What did you see? Because I wasn't there. I can only talk to the handful of people that I talk to, so I'm going off of their word of mouth, but it is people that I trust to give me that information. Let's go ahead and just dive in. We'll just do a couple quick charts and graphs just to touch on a couple things really quickly. I know that we're going long already. This is basically just going to be a very news-heavy episode. I was curious about Prism Football. Once again, market movers link in the description down below. We're looking at wax on this one. The 2021 class has definitely really been struggling to start the season, and I was curious how Prism Hobby Boxes have been holding up. And the 2020 class has also been a little up and down. Burrow's kind of been a little all over the place. He obviously started really poorly, kind of picked it up, lost chase, didn't look good in Monday Night Football as a team. It's almost more the team than Burrow, I guess, from that perspective. And then Herbert, he's played okay, but his whole team is in the injury tent. They're all in the blue injury tent, all his wide receivers. So that's a problem. So I was just interested to see how their sealed product was hanging on for those two classes. Because for a while, 2020 wax and 2021 wax look like super smart plays because you got Burrow and Herbert in one. And then 2021, you got the smorgasbord of that whole quarterback class. Outside of Hurts and a little bit Tua, you're really up in the air on those classes so far. So hobby boxes for the last couple years. This is going back to September 1st, so essentially the start of the football season. 2021 Prism Hobby is down 23%. 2020 Prism Hobby is down 33%. Still 1,700, so that's still a pretty big number. 2021 down to $1,100. An interesting angle that you could take here is if you want to buy the dip on the 2021 class, you could just buy Prism Hobby boxes instead of trying to pick an individual quarterback out of that group. Might not be a bad way to go. You're getting it at a little bit of a discounted price, so kind of keep that in mind. 2020 wax is still pretty pricey at $1,700. We'll see how that goes over the course of the next few weeks if Burrow and Herbert can kind of get their act together. Once again, it's not so much Burrow and Herbert specifically, it's more the teams around them are just kind of falling apart, to be quite honest. We'll skip over basketball for this. I did the video on Friday. If you missed it, if you want NBA talk, I broke down Eastern Conference pricing, went through a bunch of teams, and went through a bunch of players. I was going to do Western Conference in this video, but we're running really long. So I'll hold that and I'll do a Western Conference video like I was eventually going to anyway. We'll try to squeak that out for earlier next week, or earlier this week, rather. So we'll do Western Conference on that. If you want Eastern Conference prices and you missed it, I did a video breaking down a bunch of Eastern Conference prices of guys on Friday, intermixed with the PSA UK stuff. If you missed videos, go check them out because things were dropping at weird times compared to normal. There was the 9 a.m. video, and then I was putting stuff out in the afternoon. Baseball, just really quickly to touch on this, nothing is moving super crazy. The World Series has had some spikes on individual guys, but not like full price swings, nothing sustainable. It's like, oh, someone hit a couple home runs, their stuff spikes up a little bit and then immediately comes right back down again. So there hasn't really been sustained movement so far based off World Series stuff. And most likely those things will price correct as soon as the World Series is over anyway. Baseball's kind of a weird thing. It's not like the quarterback or the star player in the NBA. Unless it's like a legacy series for someone. I guess for Harper, it might be a pretty big deal if they could pull it off. But we'll see what happens as that series kind of winds down and maybe do a little retrospective on that. Also in baseball, 2022 Topps Update continues to be a pretty strong product. Full disclosure, I own a decent amount of it. By decent, 2 jumbo boxes and 4 hobby boxes on the way. Hobby boxes were up on Topps' website for $80 for about 4 or 5 days before they sold out. Jumbo boxes have been doing between about $215 and $235, just depending on where you get it at. Are you paying cash, eBay auction, or just hitting a bin on something? Everything I've been told, I've actually not ripped any. I haven't watched any breaks on any. Is that the product is pretty good, so we'll see how it ages. I'm going to do a more wax-centric video maybe later this week. I was going to wait until those hobby boxes come in because I haven't bought any actual singles for probably a month in sports cards at least. But I have spent about probably close to $1,500 to $2,000 in wax. Probably closer to $2,000 in wax. Over the last month and a half. So we'll kind of talk about that, just like a little mini shift in focus that I've kind of been hinting at for a while. So probably a separate video on that later in the week as well. That's all I have for you guys and girls today. Like I said, very chatty, heavy episode of the weekly sports card market update. But like, comment, subscribe. We will catch you guys and girls on the next one. Peace.